legalpal.com. When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with
Thanks for joining us tonight again on your lovely program, Truth and Justice, with Dr. Jennifer Obaseki. I am your host, Esther Olufemi. This evening we'll be talking about divorce. Very big issue, isn't it? Okay, today we'll talk about divorce, looking at the laws and rules surrounding divorce and separation in the UK, in England, and Wales, and well, in every part of the world. What are the things happening? Why would two lovebirds come to a stage where they have to go their separate ways? What is the law when children are involved? What happens to properties? What happens to finances? You know, we need this information, we need this knowledge so that we'll be able to reduce the rate of people going into psyche homes because of divorce and separation. And I've got with me one and only gorgeous Dr. Jennifer Obaseki. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good.
Welcome.
And yourself?
Oh, I'm perfectly fine, thank you.
Been a busy
Thank
day,
God.
isn't it?
Busy day. Monday's always beautiful.
I like that.
Some people say they don't like Mondays, but for me, it's another day God has given us to go out there and do what He has destined for us to do. So Mondays are always beautiful.
Mondays are always beautiful. That's a nice one from Jennifer this evening. We will go on a short break, very short break. We should be having a guest with us today who is a coach, a relationship coach. I call her Zina Arinza. She's on her way. She should be with us shortly on the show. We're going to short break. Call your friends and family members to quickly come. Let's do
Before
this
we
together.
go on the break,
Yeah.
yes, remember it's interactive.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you, your
Absolutely.
questions and your issues. And at the same time, let us know how you're feeling about the program. This is the third episode now, so we'd like to hear from you.
I'm sure they're warming up to us.
Yes.
Yeah. They'll
So
join
the
us.
big D we're discussing today, the difficult D, divorce.
Exactly.
And
We'll see you
separation.
in a bit. Don't touch the dial.
Don't touch it.
When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Obaski Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020-7739-7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.
Thanks for staying with us. This is Truth and Justice with Dr. Jennifer Obaseki. She is the executive producer, and I'm your host, Esther Olufemi. Like I said, this evening we'll be looking at the serious D, divorce.
DD.
Why we two lovebirds who wouldn't sleep without each other, who wouldn't eat without each other, who practically are inseparable, at some point just decide it's time to go our separate ways.
Well, some good things come to an end. Till death do us part is the vow that most people take. That's if they haven't written their own personal vows to each other. However, when a relationship becomes unhealthy or no longer palatable, or when the marriage has broken down irrevocably, and that doesn't mean we've quarreled, let's end it. That means that broken down irrevocably, that's despite our best efforts, or despite my best effort, you're not trying, or despite your best effort, I'm no longer willing, and it's not able to continue as a marriage. A marriage is the union of two people in solidarity, in union. But when that union is no longer persisting because one party or both parties agree that it is over, then that's when you come to the point of divorce. Nowadays, we were talking about the low rates of marriage.
Yeah.
And so we've got to also realize that some people are in cohabiting relationships.
Exactly.
So you might be with somebody again that's in a relationship akin to marriage. And the legal definition of a relationship akin to marriage is where you've been together for 2 years or more, and all those factors relating to a marriage are present. So you care about each other, you're living together, I'm your next of kin, you're my next of kin, I'm your guardian, you're my guardian, that type of thing. And so the courts also validate cohabitation, even if there's not a formal agreement in place. For example, if I'm cohabiting with my long-term partner and we've acquired property together, we have children together, we even have a cat, then if we separate because the relationship breaks down, the court's not going to say that I should walk away with nothing simply because we were not formally married. And this has been replicated in the courts where it comes down to people like soldiers who've had partners and died at war on the field, given their lives, and their partners are not able to claim their benefits because they were not legally married. So the courts have looked at situations like that. Even things like widow's pension. Again, the law is the law. You must be married to claim these things. So if you're in a situation where you're cohabiting, number one, think about having a formalized arrangement, because where equity is owned, what should happen should somebody pass away? That could become issues of contention if there's no formal agreement in place. Number two, if you're going to get married, think about planning and taking a step to do it, because that sort of grey area of cohabiting with no formal arrangement could be problematic if something was to happen to either one of you.
Well, someone is out there saying, okay, I'm rich, I've got a lot, I've saved up, as a single person. Now I'm bringing someone in. I don't want that person to just have access to what I've got. That is this issue of prenup. What is prenup all about?
Now, a prenup is a document that is set in place to say that before we enter into this union, you agree to these terms should we separate. This is mine, that is yours, I will give you X amount if it comes to an end, and you will accept it. And I will take whatever I've acquired, and you will agree to that. But what we've seen time and time over is prenups can be challenged. Why? Number one, they must be drafted properly. If the drafting is poor, somebody can seek to circumvent what has been agreed. That's number one. Then number two, the prenuptial agreement must be signed after the person receiving it gets independent advice. Now, I would honestly advise that both of you get independent advice.
Absolutely.
Because as much as you may have a familiar relationship with one lawyer, if they're not a family expert, they may not have drafted it in the full spirit of what's in your best interest. And number two, it's important to have maybe an objective eye on the document, if we say it like that. Somebody else's qualified and valid opinion on it may be beneficial. But it is so important that the person that you are seeking to prevent from acquiring all of your wealth, should the relationship come to an end, have qualified independent advice. It must be of good, let me say, good quality. Again, if they go to somebody who just practices family law and that person's not a seasoned expert, they can challenge the prenup and say, I didn't have proper expert advice. So we've seen it challenged. Mary J. Blige, she's a recent person. Many other people, both here in the UK, but more so in America, have successfully challenged prenuptial agreements. Again, we're human beings. Things evolve. The relationship change, the dynamics. If one person gets sick, the other person says, I signed the prenup, but you got sick and I was there catering for you, waiting on you hand and foot. I was also cleaning out the dog's mess. You didn't want anybody coming into the house. So I was your maid, your servant, your chef, etc. So the prenup should be reviewed. It was not drafted on equal terms because you changed the terms when I went into the house. So again, because of that, you've got to think about the dynamics. It can be challenged. It's not 100%. So you've got to think about how the relationship is going to run its course, especially when you're drafting the prenup. You cannot be seen to be unfair, then seek to be drafting a prenup to exclude somebody, because somebody will challenge it.
All right. For our Facebook fans tonight, you can leave us your questions, comments on Facebook. We'll pick them up live, and answer your questions if you've got any, or take your opinions on board here tonight. Now, I asked for money, you didn't give me, so I want a divorce. Is that what are the grounds? Can anybody just say, you know what, I'm tired of this same old salad.
You know,
Same old. I just
same
want
old
something.
salad?
Same old salad.
Same old
You are the top
soup.
one. Same old bono all the time. I want another block. Carry your.
You
stuff.
know.
What are the legal grounds?
You can't
for
just
divas?
say I'm tired of this car, I want a new model.
Yeah, isn't it?
I know, but at the same time, in the UK, you must establish one of the 5 grounds. You must, it's either adultery, 2-year separation, 5-year separation, and at the same time, unreasonable behavior. And then
adultery, which is the
I would say adultery is one of the biggest grounds, especially now that we have the social media influence, where people's adulterous behavior is not only more easily exposed, more easily recorded, but it's also seen in so many ways. You know, the Bible sort of says just really looking is in itself adultery, and you see what's happening on social media times 10 of that, a lot more. And it does lead to pressures on relationships. And also an escalated amount of activities within the divorce
I want
court.
you to go over those grounds again. Legal grounds for divorce. You can't just,
adultery,
wake up and say you want to get a divorce. Adultery,
unreasonable behavior,
desertion.
When somebody's just gone, left, no explanation, no cause, gone. Then 2-year separation and 5-year separation. And you see, proving the periods of separation actually does come down to factual evidence. It does become very difficult as well when somebody has deserted or left to satisfy the courts. Don't forget, when you're filing these applications, these petitions for divorce, they go to a judge, and a judge has to be satisfied, one, that you actually meet one of those 5 grounds, and then 2, that the marriage has actually broken down irrevocably. And he has to be satisfied that the person who you are asking to be divorced from has received the petition. And that's difficult when there's been desertion, or you think the person went back to Guatemala or Brazil 2 years ago, but I'm not sure where they're living, I know where they're living, but they're not replying my letters. So at times, when it comes down to the engagement of a solicitor or the time spent trying to make sure that you can prove effective service, it can sometimes become painstaking and timely. The other thing is finding people, having to use tracing agents, not just detectives, FBI, but having to use private investigators to actually go out, confirm the address, that having to be used as evidence when you're serving to show a judge that we can prove this person lives there, this is a bill, this is photographs, we can prove there was a recorded delivery, or this was the courier that has had it signed for, but this person is willingly trying to evade the fact that we can prove service. And judges, it all again comes down to evidence. It really, really does. But the petition is not where it starts. It really does start a bit, if we take a step back, with mediation.
Absolutely.
We have to think about the duration of the marriage. Once you're married, it's not just we're not getting along, or even if he's beating me and I want out. There are minimum periods that have to be spent in the marriage. So it's really a period of 2 years unless there is physical violence, domestic violence. And if there is violence, again, it's something that could be challenged. So you must try to have proof, whether that's police reports, reports to a GP, reports to an intervention service, or a service within the community that's specialised in dealing with domestic violence. And we talked about domestic violence a few weeks ago. And this can be verbal abuse, emotional abuse as well, does count. So don't be afraid in leaving a bad situation or a situation that's unhealthy for you. If you think, I might not meet the grounds, get some advice, get some help.
Okay, you mentioned mediation. What does that entail?
Well, the courts used to get tired of cases being backed up on the system and in front of the, on the timetable that involve people that just wanted to come and sit down and quarrel.
And waste court time and public funds.
Court time and their own costs. Many of these divorce cases would rack up so much in legal fees that there would be literally nothing
left after divorce.
It's not a case of you being right or me being wrong or you being right, and it's a case of how do we resolve this? How do we settle this? And if it's a case of going to meet a mediator to discuss the main crux of the issues before coming into court, spend time with the mediator. It's cheaper.
Seriously.
And funny enough, you know, all of your negative feelings that have resulted in you leading or going down that road of divorce, it's best you leave them at the door with the mediator and discuss what's important. Are the children going to continue in the education path? How often are you going to see them? How do we divide the pension? You've been working, I've been at home. That means that I've not been able to build up my pension. I need to have some of yours. You don't like it? Well, the mediator will tell you that it's what the judge is going to order. It's better we get a sense of realization, or the couple get a sense of realization in front of the mediator with regards to children, with regards to assets, with regards to finance, so that they're not in front of the court every other day arguing and depleting the marriage assets and the marriage finances to the point where a judge looks, you're quarreling and there's nothing left in this pot to divide to either one of you. So mediation should be embraced. I always say that, you know, go in with an open mind, go in with the fact that you want to try and achieve a fair outcome. If you go out into mediation thinking, I want to dominate, I want to be seen as the winner, then you're just deceiving yourself and you're wasting everybody's time. So it's best to go in open-minded with view to having a fair settlement. But again, human beings, what you consider fair may not be what I consider fair. So hopefully the mediator helps everybody come to a happy medium, if we say it like that. It's the mediator's job to try and help both parties come to a happy medium and resolve issues.
So you can actually resolve relationship issues and get divorced such a without going to court.
Well, you can agree the terms of a settlement, yes. Then go in and basically get the judge to approve those terms if everything has been discussed, mediated, agreed beforehand. And the judges actually prefer that. You can go to mediation 3-4 times, discuss the various issues, get your lawyer to look over an agreement, draft an agreement, and there you go, you're ready to go to court. Not you're going to court, you have your first appointment, you have your second appointment, you're filling out your forms, you're then asking for evidence and paying hearing fees, paying your lawyer's fees along as well for representation and your consultations and your written advice along that path, to the extent that where if you were arguing over £50,000 already, 10,000 here has gone.
Money's gone.
Money's gone. So it's better you do, as I say, try to approach mediation with an open mind and with the aim of achieving a fair outcome.
Okay. I'll pick on something you said shortly before we go on a break. For a couple who are cohabiting, not legally married, cohabiting, living together in the property, probably sharing rent, doing decorations, paying bills and stuff. And now they are at the point where they have to go their separate ways. Are we going to say because they are not legally married, then the other party is not entitled to anything? Because
no, definitely not. You see, if your name is not on the tenancy agreement, then you may apply to court to have the tenancy transferred into your name, especially if you've been the one paying the rent, especially if you've maybe invested more in the property. You may say, look, I have more of an equitable interest here. I've acquired more of an equitable interest, but it comes down to evidence. Same if you've bought the property. There's a procedure within the civil proceedings called talatia, where the judge looks at who owns the equitable interest if you haven't got it spelt out on paper. When you're acquiring property together, most people will sit down and analyse whether they're buying as tenants in common or they're buying in relevant proportions. So if I come into the marriage and I'm bringing £4,000 towards the deposit of a property and somebody else doesn't bring anything, on paper there'll be that evidence. When you have acquired assets during the course of the marriage, they're seen as joint assets. So if you say that you want to have your own large lump sum recognised, you can try to have that dealt with in the conveyancing of the matter, have it reflected that you put in a higher proportion. But if you don't do that, as I said, it comes down to evidence. It comes down to you showing how much was used from your income, your salary, etc. But be mindful. just because you put forward more money doesn't mean you'll get more property or more of an interest. A judge will look at each person's capability of earning, their years left of working, their fields of expertise before making a decision.
All right, we are going to go on a short break, and when we return, the studio line will be open if you have any question to ask us tonight. And like I said, for those who are watching us live on Facebook, you can drop us your questions, contribution, your opinion. We'll pick them up from the Facebook page as well. Don't touch the dial. We'll be right back. See you soon.
When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor. You look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Obaski Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020 7739 7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com. When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Obaski Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020 7739 7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com. When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Obaski Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020 7739 7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com. When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Obaski Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020 7739 7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.
Thanks for staying with us on your lovely program, Truth and Justice. We are here for justice. We are here for the truth. Truth about anything, justice for the oppressed. Jen, we are talking. If you're just joining us, we're talking about divorce, separation,
divorce, the big D, relationship breakdown.
And
things you need to consider.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly. Some people are out there thinking, well, I'm suffering, I'm dying, this relationship is not working, I want out, it's killing me, she's killing me, but I can't afford legal fees, I don't want to go
Yes.
there. What would you suggest for
Well,
people who are thinking finance is...
It's a common problem, number one, but it's resolvable, number two. First of all, you can get some initial legal help and assistance with divorce. That's just initial, obviously, and that you can get if you are suffering domestic violence. And also, if your finances are so diabolical with regards to not being able to maintain yourself because somebody's being financially abusive. If you're sort of middle of the road, in the sense that you have an income, it's medium, but you just cannot afford those hours of legal advice and even financial advice, if there's high yielding assets involved, you may need to go to an accountant to get further expert advice. There may be the need for estate valuations as well. So when there are a lot of property, a lot of financial considerations, you do need the experts in there. So number one, you need to think about whether you can come to an agreement with your solicitor that they will get the proceeds or their fees at the end of the proceedings or at the end of divorce proceedings. And the funny thing is, judges are ever so used to dealing with cases in that way, so that the legal fees are protected during the course of proceedings. So don't let that be an issue. One of the other main issues that we have when we're discussing divorce with people is jurisdiction. Many people have migrated to the UK, are in the diaspora community, so their originating marriage certificates and marriage ceremonies did not take place here in the UK. And often people think that's a barrier to getting divorced, but it is not.
It's not.
And again, if assets are in Nigeria or in Ghana or in India,
They can all be taken into account.
they can all be taken into consideration. So that's not an issue. But garnishing and protecting those assets sometimes is. We hear the stories that people quarrel in London, and before you know it, family has moved into the house back home and throwing people's things out or warning other members of the family they can't enter the compound and all of those things. Injunctions that are effective here can be implemented there.
That's right.
You must take steps to protect your assets and protect your interests. Property can be valued there and translated in currency here. So whether something is worth 500 million in Magodo or Victoria Island or in the village of Imo State, those things can be taken fully into consideration. Now, the other thing is we have to think about finance very, very specifically, as I've said. So when I talk about an accountant coming in or a financial advisor coming in, sometimes it's absolutely necessary. When you think about the value of pensions, when you think about some of the pension figures not being secure anymore, there is a need for there to be specific analysis and accounting with regards to these figures, because it's going to be your income that is going to be divided. So it's best to pay for that expert advice and not try to skimp. Many people are, oh, I've paid you the lawyer, I don't need to know, we can see on paper it's like this. You're like, no, if we need to tell the judge what the value of your pension is going to be or what this person's earning capacity is going to be, it has to come from a financial expert. Do the right thing. Do not think that you can just skimp over things that need to be done by experts. As I said, whenever you walk into court, you win normally based on your evidence, not necessarily how good your lawyer chats. It is about what can translate on paper, what is provable, what is fact-based, and therefore what the judge will be convinced to make their decision on.
Interesting. When it comes to separation and divorce, are you saying there is no legal aid? You know, people when you talk about divorce, people ordinarily want to think, I can get legal aid.
It is available,
Yeah,
but there are some conditions.
Qualify for legal aid.
Yeah,
Who
people
qualify for legal aid for
legal
divorce?
aid is means and merits tested. So you go in and there's some legal aid available for mediation. There are contracts available where solicitors are paid to give mediatory advice and assistance. So some lawyers, quite a few, are actually qualified as mediators as well. So that means they get to sit down and be the person that hears from party A and party B. That's not necessarily the lawyer that you may have initially instructed. So you may go to a lawyer that then refers you on to an independent mediator, because your lawyer cannot mediate for you and the party, because there's a conflict of interest. But when we say conflict of interest, that means if you're my client, I cannot necessarily mediate for you and your partner. I have to refer you on to an independent mediator because one of you is my client. And we have to always check that those fine lines are not crossed, because it's we're ethically bound to make sure that we do things properly as lawyers. So on answering your question, there is legal aid available, but it's means and merits tested. So when we say that, they look at your means, your financial income, and then it's assessed based on how much you are earning. And then the second thing, merits. They look at the merits of the case. Do you qualify in or for receiving this? Is there a substantial benefit for you to obtain if you get this legal assistance? Don't forget, legal aid, everybody hears it's being cut dramatically, but it is out there. See if you qualify before you pay money over. And to know if you qualify, you can go onto the .gov website and put in your financial details, and it actually does the calculation for you. I always say people overlook the .gov website, but it is a wealth of information right there. There is so much there, and one of the things it can tell you is whether you qualify for legal aid.
All right, so we're going on a short break. There's this saying that when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. So when we return, we'll be looking at children as regards divorce and separation. Don't touch that dial.
When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Obaseki Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020-7739-7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com. When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Obaseki Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020-7739-7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.
Thanks for staying with us on your lovely program, Truth and Justice. I told you we're going to have a very special person in the house with us tonight, and I'm glad to bring your way the gorgeous, beautiful relationship coach, I call her Auntie Zina Arize. Good evening.
Good evening, Esther. Good
to
evening, Dr.
see
Jenny. How are you?
Thanks for joining us
You're
tonight.
welcome.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we've been talking about divorce, separation, and relationship problems. I know you're divorced.
Yes, I am.
How was it like being a divorced woman when it happened?
It was a
What was it
nightmare.
like?
It was a nightmare because you know, I didn't expect, well, put it this way, I didn't expect it. You know, you always go into a marriage expecting it to last forever. And even though things weren't good, I was in denial. You know, I didn't want to be that statistic, that divorced woman, you know, and as an African woman as well, you know.
That label.
Yeah.
Can I also say to you that, you know, I've never been married, but that stigma that does float through our community, which is very wrong, single mother and all this labeling that goes on. And to be honest with you, this is what single mother looks like.
Heave.
Take
I
that.
need to.
So do not be worried about stigma. Do not put
Yeah.
yourself in harm's way.
Yeah, seriously, it's not worth it. You don't want to die because you want to be Mrs. somebody.
Absolutely,
Mrs.
absolutely.
Unhappy.
Mrs. Unhappy, absolutely.
So at what point in your own relationship did you make up your mind, you know what, I'm out?
You know, knowing what I know now, I should have made up my mind earlier on. I didn't. I was one of those people that I call a stayer. So if you're a stayer out there, please, if it's not working, leave. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't make your marriage work. You can. You know, marriage should last forever, and it's for both parties. So it's for you and your husband or you and your wife to work together to make it work. But if it's not working, you need to leave. Especially if there's abuse and stuff, you need to leave so that you don't raise your children, if you've got children, in a toxic environment. Because let's face it, those children are leaders of tomorrow. And if you have broken leaders, you have a broken society.
Absolutely.
Can I just ask you, if people are on that teetering point of, I'm not just there yet, what can I do to prevent this? What can I do to salvage this marriage?
Yeah.
What advice can you give
Very,
them?
very good question. What I did is that I prayed. Obviously, I'm a Christian, so I prayed. But I think it's important for both parties to want the marriage to work. This is what I know now. You can't. One person can't salvage a marriage. It takes two. And as much as sometimes we are taught, especially as women, that a wise woman builds her home, so you've got to kind of work and strive to save your marriage. But it's two people.
Two.
You know, if one person does not want that marriage, no matter what you do, it's not going to work. But it's important also that, you know, go for counselling. You know, there's mediation services. There you can go to places like Relate. People like to go to church. I'm a church woman. And what I would say, without any stigma or any kind of, you know, being insultive to, you know, the body of Christ, I would prefer, if you can, to go to people that are actually qualified in this area of trying to mend your marriage. So these will be people that either in the church, if they've gone for training, proper training. I'm not talking about praying and being appointed by your church leader, but you've gone for proper training with regards to relationship counselling, mediation, arbitration, all these things to either help you to mend your marriage, or if it's come to a place ahead where it can't go, you make sure that you go to proper mediation so that you decide how you're dividing your property or your assets or making those decisions.
We did speak about safeguarding in church.
Yes,
we spoke about that, especially in relation to abuse. And what's your experience of that? Do you feel that many of the churches are equipped to deal with issues such as abuse and safeguarding?
No, I wish I could say yes. I recently, probably about 2 years ago now, about a year and a half, I went for a course in Swanley. They've just changed their name, but they're known around the country for dealing with safeguarding in the church and teaching us how to protect our children, how to protect vulnerable adults and all that. And no, the churches are not equipped at all, because typically what would happen, let's use an example of abuse, for instance. If there's an abusive situation, churches with the best, you know, interest at heart, they will normally call the couple. So the husband and the wife will come, the church will pray for them, lay hands on them, speak to them. Whoever is the perpetrator, don't do it again. Oh, I'm so sorry, I won't do it again. And then you, okay, it's all good, and you send them home. You are sending that victim, whether she's a woman or whether it's a man, you're sending that person back into, and you're not there. So it's important that if there's abuse, for instance, because we're talking about safeguarding, that when you speak to the couple, you speak to them in such a way that the person that's in danger has been taken out of the place of danger, protected completely, and the children are referred on. You know, if you can't deal with it as a church, you can refer it on. There are lots of, you know, sometimes Christians like to say, oh, we want to pray about it, and that's all fine because I am a woman of God. But you need to have the expertise. You can't be all things to all men. So if you're a church or you're a church leader listening right now, or even if you belong to another faith group, like you're a Muslim, you know, whatever Hindu, whatever faith you belong to, I know that marriage is a very big thing in the faith community. Get training. Send your imams, your pastors, your leaders, your counselors on the requisite training to ensure that you protect the woman or protect the man and definitely protect the children.
To be honest with you, it's so important that you get the assistance to write up a proper safeguarding policy.
Absolutely.
As an institution, you must have one. It shouldn't be something that you consider optional. It's obligatory. You don't want a woman who, or her family, if she's injured and passed away, to say, look, she came to you 10 times, 5 times, and you didn't do anything. So again, with the same with children, as we used as an example a few weeks ago, please, we're here. Our numbers are there. Contact us. You can contact Zena to come in and do training. You can speak to Obaseki solicitors, and we'll be happy to come in and help you.
Thank you, Dr. Jennifer. If you want to talk to us tonight live at the studio, that's the studio number on the screen. Give us a shout, ask your questions, bring up your contribution. We'll be happy to hear from you. Before you joined us tonight, I was about asking Dr. Jennifer, I said, there's this saying that when two elephants fights, is the ground that suffers.
Absolutely.
In the course of your own divorce, what was the impact of it on your children? How did you manage with the children?
I think, my children growing up, especially my oldest daughter, she was a bit lost, she was confused, she felt as if there was something that she could do to make it better. She felt it was her fault, and then she's much older now, she's 20 now, so she's moved on from that. But it does leave, it does on both children.
What are the common adverse effects that a divorce has on children?
Wow, school, and they start misbehaving at school, or they start becoming really quiet at school. Yes, introverted. They start telling lies. Some children tell lies and say, well, on holiday, me and my dad and me and my mum, let's say me and mine, we went on this holiday, we went on that. They start, start becoming very, how will I put it, stubborn. Sometimes they just stay in their rooms, and especially if you have boys. I have girls, so it wasn't exactly like that, but because of the work that I do, this is something that comes up all the time, and sometimes children get disciplined so much at school they think that they're being naughty or unruly, but really what's happening is that they're looking for attention. They feel unloved, they feel rejected, they feel overwhelmed, they feel like, why is this happening to us? Doesn't mummy love me? Doesn't daddy love me?
Here I am, help me through this.
Absolutely.
They're divorcing, but here I am, help me through this.
Absolutely.
So yes.
Yeah, and something my daughter said, I think it's very useful to share your own experiences so that people can actually feel it.
And know it's real, and know that we go through this, other people are in the same boat.
Yes, it's not textbook. One of my daughters said to me recently that, and I didn't actually realize this, that when I was going through my pain and everything, they felt they couldn't really speak to me. So they were speaking to me. I thought we were close. I was, but they felt they don't want mummy to be upset. Mummy's sad. Mummy's crying, and so they weren't speaking to me as much as. So I could say that I lost some time with my children without actually realizing it. Because they were thinking, okay, I don't want mummy to be upset, so they weren't speaking. They were keeping things in. They weren't sharing, and they weren't speaking at school because they, the kind of family we come from, we don't kind of speak at school.
Don't let them know what's happening.
Yes, in your house, absolutely.
What happens at home
stays at home. So there was no outlet. I've only got to know this year.
That's one of the things that I would say is very common. Having an advisor that understands the other cultural issues you may be facing as a person going through divorce. And I say person because as a man going through divorce, it's often very traumatic. So when we talk, we also talk from the male perspective, where they're often seen as a failure, where they're seen as not been man enough to have kept the woman, where they're seen as not being father enough, especially if the woman then takes the children away, how the man then preserves contact and positive input into their child's lives. So these are other issues that you may have to deal with during the divorce proceedings. So we've talked about the finance, but when it comes down to the children and contact, if you don't mind, again, I know many men feel reluctant to make that application. She's taking the kids now. When they're bigger, they'll come and look.
They'll know their fathers.
And that attitude is so wrong. Number one, judges start from a why not 50-50 standpoint. If there's no abuse, a judge is going to have that as a starting point. Then the judge is going to look at convenience. What's in the best interest for this child? Is it best for this child to stay with mum Monday to Friday and dad on weekends and shared holidays? I always do say to my male clients, though, is don't put your hand out for what you can't receive.
Yes.
Don't overstretch yourself and say, I can have this child 50% of the time when you're working 100% of the time. So be real about what you can do and how best you can also support your child. And so do not be put off, even if you feel that, because it's a woman, or even if there's been false allegations of abuse, because that's something that's also
it happens quite a lot. Yes.
And we see it and we deal with it. So even if you've been falsely accused of abuse, a judge is not going to really look at that, especially if it's been in the past. If it's been in the past and you have put your hands up, yes, I did slap her once, or yes, there was an argument of this altercation and I said sorry and I did physically touch her, but we moved on from that. She stayed with me, we've gone on, we've had children, relationship has broken down now, but I want to be involved in my children's life. So you must make that application. When you don't put your hands up to your wrongdoings, that's when the judges have issues. So you say, I didn't do nothing, but yet she presented at the GP 10 times with injuries. Then there's an issue. A judge will then see that you not only don't respect the court process, but you're dangerous because you're not ready to admit what your faults are. So please don't be put off if there's been false allegations. Don't be put off because you're a man and you think that there's more sympathy given to females. So it's again one of those situations where, as part of the proceedings, contact and those child arrangements can be put into play. Are there some other common issues that come up around children that you might want to discuss with us?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's funny you should say that, Dr. Jenny. I have a client, particularly that this happened to, a male client of mine, you know, because as you know, I deal with the emotional recovery side of it, you know, although I am a lawyer as well. But, you know, what I've found, and you would find this as well, that lots of people don't deal with their emotional, so they make emotional decisions, like the example you've given. I've given her all, you know, the major part of my life, so I want the children, without thinking, can you look after children? Or a woman might say, I want the house. Maybe all her friends are saying, don't let him do that, take the house. But you don't know whether you can actually keep up the mortgage.
Can you maintain
the house? So,
but the question is, in the case where children are involved, even if the woman or the man cannot maintain the house, will the needs of the kids, of the children, not come first?
Of course, that's what people should look at. But unfortunately, during these quarrels and people putting their Maggie, pepper, people putting their 2 pence in, sometimes these decisions are being made with emotion and not practical application.
Absolutely.
So again, yes, the children come first. Children should come first, and then how you then maintain the children looked at second, and who's in the best position and what time should be spent with one party and what time with another. But when that emotion plus this one chipping in their opinion, that one shouting, you know, it can become convoluted. So that's why we say, go to the mediators, go to the experts, let yourself reflect and not make those heated emotional decisions that are not able to be played out or not even practical.
At the end of the day, when you make decisions from an emotional standpoint, you can't take those decisions back. This will determine the rest of your life in terms of your finances and in terms of your children. You know, if you make a decision because you want to get back at, you know, your spouse or your ex-spouse, what you're doing really is that you're impacting the children negatively. They feel rejected, they feel, you know, lost, torn, you know, and what you will find is as they grow older, there's something you mentioned, Dr. Jenny, earlier on, that, you know, lots of fathers will say, well, children will come and find me later on, you know, I'm not going to bother, I'm not going to go to the court and waste my time and get, you know, let some man, a fellow man, tell me what to do. So, you know, so they don't go.
I'm a man, I can have children till I'm 70.
You know, and so they don't, you know, they don't know that this is absolutely, you know, something that is actually available to them, and the courts will listen. You know, I know lots of men think, oh yes, it's a, you know, it's a ladies' world, and but it's not. If so many women do make false allegations. I had a situation where a man, unfortunately, he was so upset with his wife, he went there and he spat at her. You know, unfortunately for him, you know, all the other things that she had done, you know, were not counted, you know. So I got a call.
So we see it,
I got a call. So, you know, what do I do? And so I had to talk him through and everything and say, look, you need to have your emotions in order. Don't listen to your friends. Don't, because, like, you know, with all the best interest we give.
best will in the world, these friends are also heated. They want to bat for you. They want to make sure that they're saying the right things that get you to say. But there are very few that will actually be that voice of reason and say, go and apologise. Make sure you do the apology and and therefore you've acknowledged what you've done is wrong. It will go on record that you did that, and it shows that you're a person of a reasonable standpoint.
And you like to apologise. And you're right. You're reasonable, and the courts will look at that favourably as well. The courts are not, they're not. People sometimes feel that they are so inflexible and they're not human beings. Courts are made up of people just like you and me. They have marital issues as well.
I'll give you an example. There was a situation where we had a case, and unfortunately one of the parties died. But during the fact that they just before the death of one of the parties, now what we had was they were separated, but there was nothing in writing, nothing on paper, and so the supposed abusive party had to deal with the whole of the funeral, and the other family was enraged that he was abusive, they were separated, nothing was on paper. So when we talk about keeping records and not taking action, again, and women of faith, always very reluctant to say what's happening or seek help. Is there any advice you can give people if they're going through abuse and feeling that they shouldn't say anything because they're scared of bringing shame to the family?
Knowing what I know now and the advice that I give, and because of the work that I do, you have to keep record. There's no need, you can tell your friends and all that, but that's not the point. Don't tell your friends. If you're feeling ashamed, don't tell your friends, but do keep adequate record. If you're really worried, you can even keep your phone on. Have your phone on so that later on you can have that transcribed, because obviously we know, that by itself will not be admissible. But if you have, so you can keep a record of what's happening. Keep your phone on. Keep a journal. Talk about your feelings. Today I went to the market and my child did this, and my husband gave me a slap, or my wife stepped on my toe, or my wife, whatever it is that's happened, keep a record of it, because you will need it. And later on, when you do decide, if you do decide to take it further, you have something. Because what normally happens, and I'm sure you guys have spoken about it already, if you don't have the evidence, it won't stack up. It won't stack up. It doesn't matter how many times your friends in your cell group have come, or your pastors come to your house. And prayed. If there's no evidence. And I'm not telling you to, because I understand where lots of women come from, and men, people of faith. They don't want to.
We go to our pastors, but will those pastors come to court or do statements? I tell you, 9 times out of 10, the answer's no.
9 times out of 10, your men of God and women of God will tell you don't go to court. Don't. I have a situation where another couple about 2-3 years ago. This was a situation of abuse, and they had gone to their church and spoken lots of times, and the pastor had spoken to them, and it looked like everything was okay. And what happened is that, the woman, she called the police, she wanted to take it further, but the church spoke to her. And you're thinking, okay, God is forgiveness and all that, so she didn't take it. And before she knew it, her children were taken away from her, because the man was able, he used emotional abuse, and made it look like she was, losing her mind.
That's a common thing as well.
Yes, and her children were taken away from her.
Well, thank you.
Our time
Can I just say to you, don't let anybody think you're losing your mind. If you're a victim of abuse, then there's help that's out there. And we discussed that last week about routes you can take to get help. Now, just as we round up, I'd like to say a very big thank you to our Lady Warrior.
We're sure going to have her back on the show, because
thank you very much.
There are lots of questions we would have loved to ask you tonight.
I can actually see that.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have you back on the show. Before we go, quickly, can life be beautiful after divorce for a woman or for a man?
Well, look at me. Look at me.
Look at me.
Once the chapter and that page is turned, what happens next?
What happens is that obviously you've got a life to live, and you only have one life, so you can reinvent yourself. You can go back to uni if that's what you want to do. You can, what normally happens when you get married, you subsume yourself into your spouse, and that's normal. That's fantastic. Yes. But then suddenly you don't know who you are. And then that marriage is no longer existing. Who am I? What do I do? It's almost like when you're retired and the children have flown the nest. Who am I? What do I do?
What do I do my time?
You can travel around the world, go wine tasting, do things that you've never done before. Go to the theatre, learn how to swim,
learn a new skill.
Do what I do, become a coach. Go back to school and study
Use
law.
that experience
study
to help
law,
others.
studying, you know, you can, there's
Isn't
so many
it?
things, you know, you're never too old. It's like C.S. Lewis
Wow.
always says, you're never too old to set a new dream or set a new goal or dream a new dream. You're never too old.
Never,
Okay,
ever too
that's
old.
it. Time heals all things.
Time heals all.
That
It
we're going to
does.
touch on when
It
next you
does.
come.
Right.
Could separation be an alternative to divorce?
Does it allow people to then have the choice to come back?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
maybe a discussed and arranged period of separation
Yes, yes.
during which you reevaluate, during which you may decide to heal.
Yes.
And
and then
improve
give, and then
Improve
exactly,
things.
And go on
And then
courses together to
exactly.
and become
To
better
rebuild.
spouses.
Exactly.
Yes.
What
So
we'll look at that.
Agreed
Yeah, I like that.
separation and a separation arrangement is something that can be done in a legal document.
Yeah.
Yes, it
You
can.
can have
Absolutely.
terms and conditions of your separation,
Yeah.
terms and conditions for contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, separation as an alternative to divorce should be discussed as an option. It could be done
Absolutely.
during mediation or it could be done by you individually.
Absolutely.
But yes, it can be legally arranged so that there is no, let's say, ill feelings during that period, and
Yes.
it's each person has set terms considered.
We've got to go tonight.
Oh no.
Time is up.
Well, what a wonderful show. I
Isn't
must
it?
say.
I love it.
Fantastic,
I love it.
fantastic,
Thank you
fantastic.
so much for coming.
Thank
on
you so
the
much
show
for having
Thank
me.
you.
Thank
and
you
we
so much,
hope to
Doctor.
have you again
Thank you so
soon.
much.
It's been another interesting episode of Truth and Justice, and trust me, we'll come your way again, same time, same station, next week with another live transforming episode of Justice, Truth and Justice, Justice and Truth.
Justice and
Just a country.
Next week, I hope to be talking about business immigration. So,
Oh,
if you want to come
fantastic.
into the UK, invest
Yeah.
money, Brexit's happening. Do you come
Yeah.
in now? Do you
Yeah.
wait for it to happen?
Yes,
Come in
yes,
later.
yes.
What types of visas can you get?
Yes.
Investment, entrepreneur, business visitor. We'll discuss
Look
that
out for
next
us
week.
next week. Get in touch with us, Facebook us, email, check our website, call, text. We need to hear from you.
Yes.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Obaski Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020 7739 7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.